Good morning, guys. I hope you survived Cinco de Mayo. If you do anything on that one, I didn't do much, 'cause that's pretty much working. So far, the overnight has been on the weak side. It looks to me like we're going to get the reverse retest of support here. So the looks like they cut off the buying at the 5720s. Looking for reverse retest at that level, the 5600s, maybe even down a bit lower here. So that's kind of what it looks like in the overnight. We had some earnings come out after the close yesterday. Palantir came out, a big AI darling. It actually down $9 or 7%. So it's kind of on the downside. So I guess when I understand it was a pretty decent reporting, pretty decent result, but I guess not good enough. So that tells you how the expectations are nowadays. So anyway, the moves it has been overnight to the downside. Kind of we got a fair amount of weakness yesterday too. If you remember what happened right at that noon hour, right before noon. It's not, it's 3 o'clock, but 3 o'clock. So it's noon my time, but 3 o'clock Eastern. They started selling off, and they pretty much retraced the whole freaking day session yesterday. So if I look at if I just look at the in N period here, that's when it started kicking in. Actually in M already, but in N it really started. You can see how they took it all the way here from the upper edge, all the way back across the whole range, and it's close towards the lower third of the range. And then the overnight has been weak on the downside. So there you go. So much for that little pop to the upside. Now we are down here and looking for a spot to cut off the selling. That's kind of what it looks like. So this move out of the middle was cut off at that edge 5720s. Now we're pulling back. Let's see how far they need to pull back before they find support. The news this morning, big one is obviously the Fed meeting begins. So no announcement. We get that announcement tomorrow. So tomorrow's going to be an interesting day and see if the Fed's going to do something constructive or if they, I guess, going to keep throwing cold water and be stubborn. With the oil prices and everything going down as it is, you would expect the inflation pressures to really come off. Also, international trade at 8:30 this morning. That's it in terms of news. So Fed meeting begins international trade. And yeah, we have a 10-year auction at 1. So that's what we got going today. All right. So 10-year auction at 1, 8:30 we have international trade. And starting off today, as you can see, pressure is to the downside. So this move out of the middle to the upside, cut off at the 5720. Now we're looking for a spot to cut off the selling, and the chances are it's going to be around about the 5595 to 5600s. I hope. If they go lower than that, it could be starting to get a little bit gnarly. And then we'll find a spot to build value. So that's kind of the way I'm looking at it right now. So starting off at this point to the short side of things, looking to sell strength. If they trade up above that 56, 55, the London high, I would be back on the range bound side of this. But initially, I'm looking for short setups against the 56, 35s, the 45s for rotations back down, and sorry, 55s here for rotations back down. So looking for short setups against the 35s, the 45s, up to the 55s for rotations back down. If they trade above that London high and take it off that short bias and going back range bound. So that's kind of where we are. Just get a nice little probe here right down to the 56.15s. We'll see if they're going to keep. I think the pressure is going to be on the downside until they get to that ledge. And the one I'm talking about is this area right there, the 55.95 to 5600s. And if that comes out, to start really pushing below that, we could see a test all the way down here to the 5500s. So that would be an ugly scenario if that happens. But at this point, that's how we get started. So leaning on the short side of this, looking to sell strength. And the reason is really if you think about the steps on a profile development, you have that move out of the middle to the upside. And so far, we had it extending all the way up here to that 57.20s. They had one consolidation day. They started backing off. And that says, okay, fine. So they cut off the buying. Now we're looking for a spot to cut off the selling. And then we're looking for more of then we have the range, and then we're looking for values to start building. So that's kind of the overall picture of it, just happening in a little bit bigger perspective on the F1 instead. On the reverse retest, I'm still looking for buying opportunities against the 56.25s, the 15s down to the 55.95 to 5600s. So these three support areas, I'm looking for buying opportunities against. It could be an edge right there as well at the 56.05s. I didn't enjoy anything up there. I think it's starting to get a little bit cluttered. So I'm thinking the better edge is down here at the 56.05s, but if they stall right here at the 56.05s, yeah, then we know that there was an edge there. Put it that way. But it feels a little bit light on that side. So below that 55.95 to 5600s, I think we may see. I would lean in on the short side. At that point, we are pulling back a little bit more than I would expect it to. So that's how we get started, and let's see how this whole thing develops. But below 5600, it could really start trading all the way down another 100 points to the downside. So it could start off a pretty gnarly move. We have this ledge, and halfway there, that's this area right there, the 5560s. So 5560s would be the next one to I would look for potentially holding. So from that 5600, if that comes out, we have another 40 points to go on the downside before I start looking for support again. So any one of these supporters could hold, but that's the one I would be paying attention to. So 5600s, 55, 65 are the two support areas if they start heading really heading lower. If we get a reverse retest of that 5600, that would be not completely out of the expected. So I would expect that, put it that way. So that's how we get started. Let's see how far they can take it on the downside. All right. So not going to be very aggressive on the long side at all. If they start trading above that 50, above the London high at 57, 56, or at 56, 55, 55 to 60 here. If that comes out on the way back, I will go back range bound, but not necessarily being super aggressive on the long side. We're going to have to see a little bit more strength for that to start happening. Now, it could certainly happen, but we have no real news to drive the market, and right now it feels pretty certain that they're pulling back off the high. So we're going to be staying on the short side until we see support, and then we'll see how far they want to retrace before we start seeing value and an area where they can build value. All right, looking at the Nasdaq and the bonds on the bond market. Back at the 14, 15, 16. They were probing here to the downside yesterday in the overnight as well, down to the 114s. They're right back here to value again. So not much directional move on the bonds. So this value area is where we are trading at. Then move to the downside, down to the 114s, retracement for the mean, or to the to value, back to value is probably the better way to say it. And that's where they're going. So I would start off range bound on the bond market at this point. We have a 10-year auction at 1. I would pay attention to that. Could be some dealer manipulation going on prior to that, so just be aware of that. So looking at the sell strength, 114.20s, 24s up to the 115s. I'm going to buy weakness. More aggressive would be 13s because they are right there. 114.05s down to the 114s for rotations back up again. So fairly straightforward action on the bonds this morning. Nasdaq is also pulling back pretty good. Pretty volatile at this point. 320,000 contracts so far, so a little bit more than normal, a little bit volatility going on there. And they are pulling back, so they are right back down here at the 800, 820 level already. So we'll see how that's going to go. So Nasdaq, the ledge to pay attention to here is going to be the this gap here between the 700 and the 740s, 750s, but that ledge here is the one. If they take that out, we can certainly see a reverse retest all the way down here to the 380s, 370, 380s. So as you see, that could be it could be a pretty rough day here if they start pulling back hard. But we have this whole area of this whole distribution prior to work in. So not unless they start taking out these areas, the 360, 370 starts trading below that, really you're gonna start thinking about the short side in a bigger way. At that point, I think the capital flow is starting to fall apart on us. But if they can hold this general area, I think we are in good shape. Where they're going to end up finding support is hard to say. The first spot's going to be around about the 740s. Next one's going to be down here at the 600s, 580 to 600s, and then it's going to be down at that ledge, that three-letter ledge here at the 360s. So that's the Nasdaq for you. I would start off on the short side. I'm going to sell strength, 860s, 900s, 930s, up to the 980s for rotations back down. If this starts trading above the 980s, I would take off the short bias and go back range bound on this guy. So if this reverse retest holds at the 750s, and then they'll never get down that far, but either the 820s or that 760s holds. If these two support areas holds and one of them holds, I think we're in a good shape to build value at this upper range. But it's anyone's guess at this point. We are in that pullback mode, stage 2 on the profile. So let's see how far they can take it. So above that London highs, 980, 70 to 80 here, taking off the short bias and going back range bound. Below it, we're still staying on the short side until we see one of these support areas holding up, or if they're going to keep it pushing it lower, and we'll just keep staying on the short side. So that's Nasdaq. Finally, oil and gold had one heck of a move in the overnight. Man, I was almost trading that. I was just clicked in a couple of test orders to make sure everything was good shape. But man, that was a move and a half, and then they just kind of died off, So it happened right at 9 o'clock Eastern, 9 p.m. when the Asian markets reopened. They took off like a rocket. Let me see. Where's my gold chart? So from having a pretty good move to the downside, retracing all the way down here to this lower support area, the 3320s. If I split out these last guys, you can see here that from that 3320, this was yesterday's move. Yesterday's overnight moved this whole range, overnight, and they stalled up here and didn't do anything. And then the overnight kicked in again and ran it all the way up here to the 3400s. And now they backed off. So, and this is us early on, real early on. It took off like crazy, and that was about it. So at this point, I would stay on the long side on gold. Watch that lower edge, 3360s. If that comes out, they start trading below the 3360s. I'm looking for rotation back to that 3340, that attractor area. But initially, I'm looking to buy weakness at this point against the 3380s, 73 or 74s, 67, 68s, 61s for 60, 61s here for rotations back up. So these 3 support areas, maybe 4 support areas here. And but if they start taking out that 3360 to 61s, looking for a retracement trade back to this attractor area at the 3340. So anyone's guess at this point if they're going to see a big retracement. Yesterday we didn't get much retracement of the overnight at all, and that was surprising. Sometimes when I have big overnights move like this, they get big retracement as well the next day in the day session. Not so much today, or sorry, yesterday, but today for sure. So I just can split out the overnight here. There you go. So you see the overnight, they closed a little bit to the upside here, and the overnight took off, and this whole thing just happened right in the first like the 2 hours or so, and then they pretty much been holding the gains since. So if it starts trading below that area, the 3360 to 61s, look for a retracement trade back here towards at least reverse retesting 34 or 3346, maybe even lower. So, but at this point, start off on the long side until they take out that 60, 61 level. All right. So I'm going to buy against the 80s, the 73, 74s, 67, 68s, and the 60, 61s for rotations back up again. And not going to be very aggressive on the short side. They've been moving like crazy, and they moved it in the overnight. As I said, I was close of trading it, but I say this is crazy range. And this is like you're looking at like $5-10 a bar. So okay, I'm gonna be very cautious about that one, And then finally oil. It looks like they're grinding back up again. So that gap down finally getting reversed. I heard it probably something to do with the Saudis talking about increasing oil production, but at this point, they're back up, reverse retesting at 58.80 to 59. So it starts trading above that 59, 59.30 level. Start thinking about rotation back up into the 61s. But a pretty nice probe to the upside and move out of the middle. They cut off the selling at the 55.20s. And so far, we are retracing back up again. So this is still a move to the downside. We had one holding day in between here, so it's almost like it's not the move out of the middle, but it's, you know, I looked at that at a pretty good extension. So at this point, let's see if they retrace back below above that 59 or the 59.30s. I would stay on the long side and see if they can move it up to the 61s. Otherwise, I would look for short setups up here, 58.70, 59, 59.30s. Looking for short setups against these areas for rotations back down again. So we'll see how this overnight has any further legs, but definitely a pretty good move on that one. So oil definitely trying to find. There's a lot of cross currents on that one, and it has to do with the Iranian oil getting cut off. Russian oil may be cut off or not. If deals comes through, they may be right back on the market again, which means that there could be a ton of oil out there. So it's a lot of cross currents. That's probably why you see this choppy action. But overall, there will be more supply, and there will be prices will be pressured to the downside. Anyway, so at this point, starting off with a slight bias to the upside, let's see if they can retest these upper levels and maybe take them out. And if they can't, look for rotation back down again. If they trade below that 58.10s, the London low, I would just stay on the short side and see how far I can take it back down again. All right, so that's oil. We get started. Back to the ES, and that guy is still in a holding pattern. So a little bit of activity going on here at the 7, but we'll see if we get some further pressure to the downside. My guess would be that we may see some early pressure on the downside, and then we'll see if support holds or if they're going to kind of knock it down either further. Alrighty, guys, we'll wrap it there for now, and I'll see you back at the 11:30 for the next update. Alrighty, guys, later.